The UES Prometheus hung in space, its massive frame reflecting the light of distant stars. For humanity, it represented hope, the pinnacle of human engineering, and the first vessel capable of traveling beyond our solar system. Captain Ju Park stood on the bridge, her hands clasped behind her back, as she gazed at the view screen. "All systems are go, Captain," reported her first officer, Lieutenant Minnow. "Wormhole drive is powered up and ready for the test jump." Captain Park nodded. This was the third test of the experimental drive, but the first that would take them beyond the orbit of Neptune. If successful, it would open up the stars to humanity. "Begin the countdown," she ordered, her voice steady despite the tension filling the bridge. The ship hummed with energy as the wormhole drive engaged. Blue light spilled from the engine sections, casting an ethereal glow across the hull. On Earth, in the Interstellar Defense Force headquarters, Commander Do-Hyun Kim watched the telemetry data with a mixture of pride and anxiety. The Prometheus was his life's work. 10 seconds to jump, came the voice over the comm. Commander Kim leaned forward, eyes fixed on the screens. Something in the data caught his attention, a fluctuation in the quantum field. "Wait," he said, reaching for the comm. "There's an anomaly." But it was too late. The space around the Prometheus twisted, stretched, and folded in on itself. A brilliant flash of light erupted, temporarily blinding the observation satellites. When the light faded, the Prometheus was gone. For weeks, the Interstellar Defense Force searched. They deployed every sensor array, every probe, every telescope at their disposal. Commander Kim barely slept, analyzing and reanalyzing the data from the test jump, looking for any clue to what had gone wrong or where the ship might have gone. But the Prometheus and its 5,000 crew members had vanished without a trace. 3 months after the disappearance, the IDF held a memorial service. Commander Kim stood rigidly at attention as the names of the lost were read aloud. Captain Park, Lieutenant Minnow, Engineer Hyjin, Dr. Taewoo, name after name, until it seemed the list would never end. Afterward, Kim faced the World Council. "The risks are too great," said the council chair. "We've lost too many good people." "We can learn from this," Kim argued. "Make improvements, add safeguards." But the decision had already been made. The wormhole project was shelved indefinitely, deemed too dangerous to pursue further. Kim watched as workers dismantled the lab where he had spent the last 15 years. Everything he had worked for, gone in an instant, just like the Prometheus. Life on Earth continued. Years passed. Commander Kim retired, his dreams of faster-than-light travel fading as his hair turned gray. The Prometheus became a footnote in history books, a cautionary tale about reaching too far, too fast. 50 years after the disappearance, Earth was a different place. Colonies had been established on Mars and several moons of Jupiter using conventional drives. Trade flourished within the solar system, and humanity had begun to think perhaps they didn't need the stars after all. Then the signals came. Strange transmissions, detected first by the outpost on Titan. Within days, long-range sensors picked up the vessels, hundreds of them, approaching from beyond Pluto. Admiral Sunholy, head of Earth's defense forces, was awakened in the middle of the night. By morning, he was in emergency meetings with the United Earth Council. "We've established limited communication," he explained, displaying the alien message on the central screen. The translation was rough, but clear enough. "Submit or be destroyed." "Who are they?" asked the council chair, her face pale. "They call themselves the Krathul," Admiral Lee replied. "From what we can gather, they're a species that conquers and enslaves others. They've done this many times before. Can we negotiate?" Lee shook his head. "They're not interested in negotiation. Their terms amount to complete surrender and slavery for humanity." "What about our defenses?" Lee brought up a holographic display showing Earth's military assets compared to the approaching fleet. The difference was stark. "Our most advanced ships are no match for their smallest vessels," he said grimly. Their weapons technology is at least a century ahead of ours, and they outnumber us 5-1. Fear spread through the council chamber. For all of humanity's progress, they were utterly unprepared for this threat. How long do we have? Someone asked. At their current speed, they'll reach Luna's orbit within 3 days, Lee said, and we have nothing that can stop them. The council descended into argument. Some advocated immediate surrender, hoping to spare lives. Others insisted on fighting to the last ship. A few suggested evacuating as many people as possible to the outer colonies, though everyone knew there weren't nearly enough ships for that. As Admiral Lee listened to the increasingly desperate proposals, his mind turned to the Prometheus. If only they had continued developing the wormhole drive, perhaps Earth would have been ready for this threat. Perhaps they would have had a chance. Outside the council chambers, news of the approaching alien fleet spread rapidly. Panic gripped the planet. Some people fled to the countryside, as if distance from the cities would save them. Others crowded into places of worship, seeking comfort in their final days. Still others simply continued their routines, unwilling or unable to accept what was coming. In his small apartment overlooking the Pacific, former Commander Do-Yeon Kim watched the news with a heaviness in his heart. He was an old man now, his dreams long abandoned. And yet, as he looked up at the night sky, he couldn't help but wonder, what if the Prometheus hadn't been lost? What if Captain Park and her crew had succeeded? Would humanity's story be ending differently? He had no answers. Like everyone else on Earth, all he could do was wait for the approaching storm. Lieutenant Myung Kang rubbed her tired eyes. She had been staring at sensor readings for 18 hours straight, tracking the approaching Krathul fleet. The enemy ships advanced in perfect formation, like a swarm of deadly insects heading toward Earth. "More coffee, Lieutenant?" asked Ensign June, holding out a steaming cup. Myung nodded gratefully and took a sip of the bitter liquid. The command center of Pluto Defense Station was quiet. Most of the crew had been evacuated, sent back to Earth to help with the final defense efforts. Only a skeleton crew remained to monitor the enemy's approach. "Any changes?" June asked, looking over her shoulder at the displays. "Same as the last 12 hours. Steady advance, no deviation in course." Myung sighed. "They know we can't stop them. They're not even bothering to hurry." The console in front of her suddenly lit up with alerts. Myung sat up straight, spilling coffee on her uniform. "What is it?" June asked, alarmed by her reaction. Myung's fingers flew across the controls, adjusting the sensors, recalibrating, checking for errors, but the readings remained the same. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "This can't be right." On the far edge of the solar system, beyond even the approaching Krathul fleet, energy readings were spiking off the charts. The pattern was familiar, similar to the theoretical models for a wormhole opening. Myung hit the emergency communication button. "Earth Command, this is Pluto Station. I'm detecting a massive energy signature at the edge of the system. Sir, these readings, they're impossible." Admiral Lee's voice came through, tense and tired. "Explain, Lieutenant." It looks like a wormhole forming, sir. But the energy output is 10 times anything we've ever recorded. And it's stable, not collapsing like our simulations predicted. Could it be another Krathul fleet? "I don't think so, sir. The energy signature doesn't match the propulsion systems. This is something else." The energy readings continued to climb. Alarms blared as the sensors struggled to process the data. "Should we evacuate, sir?" Myung asked, fingers hovering over the station's emergency protocols. There was a pause before Admiral Lee answered. "No. Hold your position, Lieutenant. Keep monitoring and send us a live feed. If this is the end, we need to know what we're facing." The space at the edge of the solar system began to distort. Myung watched in awe as the fabric of reality seemed to fold in on itself, creating a swirling vortex of light and energy. The wormhole expanded, stabilized, and then something emerged. At first, Myung couldn't make sense of what she was seeing. It was a ship, yes, but unlike any ship she had ever seen. It was massive, easily the size of Earth's largest vessel, but its design was strange, both familiar and alien at the same time. Its hull gleamed with an iridescent material that seemed to shift and flow like water, reflecting the light of distant stars in ways that defied physics. And then she saw the name emblazoned on its side. UES Prometheus. Mion's hands trembled as she zoomed in on the image. It couldn't be. The Prometheus had vanished 50 years ago. Everyone knew the story. Humanity's greatest achievement and greatest tragedy. Earth Command, she said, her voice shaking. You need to see this. The Prometheus moved with impossible grace, its engines leaving trails of blue-white energy as it accelerated toward the inner solar system. Myung noted that it was on an intercept course with the Crothul fleet, though still millions of kilometers away. Lieutenant, Admiral Lee's voice was tight with shock. Are you absolutely certain about that identification? Yes, sir. It's the Prometheus, or something that wants us to think it's the Prometheus. The mysterious ship suddenly broadcast on all frequencies. Myung accepted the transmission, and a face appeared on the main screen. Gasps filled the command center. Even Myung, who had only seen pictures in history books, recognized Captain Ju Park. She looked exactly as she did in those old photos. Dark hair pulled back in a neat bun, sharp eyes, strong jawline. She should have been long dead, or at least in her 80s, but the woman on the screen couldn't have been older than 40. This is Captain Park of the UES Prometheus, she said, her voice clear and confident. I understand we've been gone a while. We're here to help. The command center erupted in chaos. Orders were shouted, questions fired from all directions. Myung sat frozen, staring at the face of a ghost. Admiral Lee appeared on a split screen, his expression a mixture of hope and suspicion. This is Admiral Sunho Lee of Earth Command. You claim to be Captain Park of the Prometheus, but that ship and its crew were lost 50 years ago. Captain Park nodded. 50 years for you, Admiral. For us, it's been just over 20. Time dilation is a side effect of where we've been. She looked at something off-screen, then continued. I know you have questions, so do the Crothul, I imagine. But we don't have much time. They'll be in firing range of Earth in less than 3 days. How do you know about the Crothul? Admiral Lee demanded. And how do we know you are who you claim to be? Captain Park smiled, a small, tired smile. You're asking the right questions, Admiral. To prove our identity. She paused, thinking. Commander Do-Yum Kim. Is he still alive? Admiral Lee nodded slowly. He is. Good. Tell him Project Starlight still works. He'll understand. Captain Park turned serious again. As for the Crothul, we've encountered them before, during our absence. They're formidable, but not invincible. And we've brought help. Myung watched as the sensor readings updated. The Prometheus was moving faster now, its strange engines propelling it at speeds no Earth ship could match. At the edge of the display, the Crothul fleet had changed formation, spreading out as if to surround a threat. They had noticed the newcomer. Lieutenant, Captain Park said, looking directly at Myung. Your quick thinking in reporting our arrival may have just saved Earth. Hold your position and continue monitoring. We're going to need your eyes. And with that, the transmission ended, leaving Myung staring at a blank screen, coffee cooling beside her, and the impossible ship, a legend returned from the dead, racing toward humanity's enemy. The secure briefing room fell silent as Captain Ju Park entered. She walked with the same confidence she had 50 years ago, before the Prometheus disappeared. Behind her came 4 officers in uniforms unlike anything Earth's military had seen before, sleek, with subtle lines that seemed to glow from within. Admiral Lee rose to greet them. Captain Park, welcome home. Thank you, Admiral, she replied, her eyes taking in the room filled with Earth's military leaders and top scientists. Though I admit it doesn't quite feel like home anymore. An old man stepped forward from the group, his back bent with age, but his eyes sharp and clear. "Captain Park," he said, his voice wavering. Park's expression softened. "Commander Kim, or should I say, retired Commander Kim." Do-Hyun Kim reached out and touched her arm, as if confirming she was real. "You haven't aged a day." "Time works differently where we've been," she said. "For us, it's been just over 20 years. Admiral Lee cleared his throat. "As touching as this reunion is, we have pressing matters to discuss. The Krathul fleet will be within striking distance of our outer defenses in 36 hours. Captain Park nodded. "Then let's not waste time." She gestured to the officer at her right. "This is Commander Chunho Ba, my second in command." Commander Ba stepped forward and placed a small disk on the conference table. It projected a holographic display that filled the center of the room, a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, with hundreds of stars and planets marked in different colors. "This is what we know of explored space," Commander Ba explained. "The red markers are worlds the Krathul have conquered in the last century alone." The Earth officials stared in shock at the number of red markers, dozens of them, spread across the galaxy. "How do you know all this?" asked General Song, head of Earth's ground forces. "Because we've been there," Captain Park answered. "Or rather, with those who have been there. When the Prometheus's wormhole drive malfunctioned, we didn't just disappear. We were thrown across the galaxy into a region of space controlled by what they call the Coalition of Free Species." She nodded to Commander Ba, who adjusted the hologram. New markers appeared, blue and green, forming a rough alliance that pushed against the red territory. "The Coalition is made up of 17 different species," Park continued. "All of them have either fought the Krathul or sheltered refugees from Krathul conquest. They found us drifting, our drive systems damaged beyond our ability to repair. They could have destroyed us," added Commander Ba. "Instead, they helped us, taught us, and eventually welcomed us into their alliance." A slender woman in the uniform of the Prometheus stepped forward. "I'm Engineer Hiren Choi," she said. "When we realized Earth would be in the Krathul expansion path, the Coalition helped us modify the Prometheus with their technology." She touched the hologram controls, and the display changed to show detailed schematics of Krathul ships. "Their weakness is their hive-mind command structure," Hiren explained, pointing to neural-like pathways running through the ships. "The Krathul aren't individuals like us. They function as a collective consciousness, linked through a sophisticated neural network. Each ship is like a limb of the same organism." Admiral Lee leaned forward. "So if we destroy their command ship?" "No," Hiren shook her head. "That's been tried. They simply establish a new command node. But we've developed something better, technology that can disrupt the neural network linking their fleet." She produced a small device from her pocket, about the size of her palm. "This emits a specialized quantum field that interferes with their communication. When activated in proximity to their ships, it essentially gives them a neural seizure. They can't coordinate, can't think collectively." Earth's top scientist, Dr. Woojin Yoon, approached cautiously. "May I?" he asked, reaching for the device. Hiren handed it to him. Dr. Yoon turned it over in his hands, his eyes wide with wonder. "This technology is, I can't even begin to understand how it works." "That's why we're here," Captain Park said. "Not just to fight for you, but to fight with you, to share what we've learned." Dr. Yoon looked up from the device. "How long would it take to replicate this? To build more?" "Too long to make enough for every ship," Hiren admitted. "But we don't need to. If we can modify your existing communication arrays to broadcast at the right frequency, we can extend the effect. It won't be as powerful, but it could give us the edge we need." Dr. Yoon nodded decisively. "We'll need to work around the clock. I'll assemble my best team." As the scientists huddled around the device, Admiral Lee pulled Captain Park aside. "You said the Coalition helped you. Are they sending ships? Reinforcements?" Captain Park's expression grew solemn. "Yes, but space is vast, Admiral. Even with their advanced drive systems, the closest coalition fleet is 3 weeks away. 3 weeks, Admiral Lee repeated. We need to hold out for 3 weeks against an enemy that could crush us in 3 days. Captain Park placed a hand on his shoulder. The Prometheus isn't just one ship, Admiral. It's a carrier. We have fighters, weapons, and technology that can even the odds. And more importantly, we have knowledge of how they fight. From the doorway, a voice interrupted them. How do we know we can trust you? All eyes turned to General Tai, head of Earth's Intelligence Division. He stood with arms crossed, his gaze fixed suspiciously on Captain Park. 50 years you've been gone, he continued. Then you show up with miraculous technology and tales of alien alliances, just when we face extinction. Convenient timing. The room fell silent. Captain Park met his gaze steadily. A fair question, General. Why would you trust us? We could be imposters, collaborators, or worse. She walked to the center of the room, looking each Earth official in the eye. But consider this. If we meant you harm, why announce ourselves? The Krathul already had you outmatched. We could have waited until after they weakened you. She turned to Commander Kim. You received my message. About Project Starlight. The old man nodded. I did. But Project Starlight was classified. Only 3 people knew its true purpose. 4, corrected Captain Park. You, Admiral Chen, Director Lim, and me. It wasn't about developing the wormhole drive at all. It was the failsafe, a way to destroy the drive if it fell into the wrong hands. Commander Kim's eyes widened slightly, then he nodded again, more firmly. It's her, he told the others. This is really Captain Juu Park. Captain Park turned back to the room at large. The Prometheus didn't just survive, she told them. We were saved for this moment. We've spent 20 years learning about the enemy you now face. 20 years preparing to return. Not just to come home, but to save our home. She looked at Dr. Yoon, already deep in discussion with Engineer Choi about the disruption technology. We have 36 hours before the first wave hits. Let's make them count. Fleet Commander Taehyun Ryu stood on the bridge of the EDS Valiant, the flagship of Earth's defensive fleet. Through the view screen, he watched as the Prometheus took position at the front of their formation. The legendary ship looked nothing like the vessel in the historical records. Its hull shimmered with an otherworldly iridescence, and strange appendages that could only be weapon systems dotted its surface. All ships report ready, Commander, said his communications officer. Taehyun nodded, his mouth dry. The plan was audacious, perhaps even foolhardy. But they had no choice. The Krathul Armada had pushed past the outer planets with frightening speed, brushing aside the automated defense platforms as if they were nothing more than toys. Open a channel to the Prometheus, he ordered. Captain Juu Park's face appeared on the screen. Unlike Taehyun and his crew, who wore the strain of the past 3 days in their tired eyes and tense expressions, she appeared calm, almost serene. We're ready, Captain Park, Taehyun said, though I must admit I still have doubts about this strategy. Understood, Commander. But remember, the Krathul think as one. They can't comprehend sacrifice or misdirection. That's our advantage. She offered a reassuring smile. Trust us. We've done this before. The communication ended, and Taehyun turned to his tactical officer. Status of the neural disruptors. Dr. Yoon reports all units are online and calibrated. Earth's defense grid is ready to broadcast on the Prometheus's signal. The bridge fell quiet as the enemy fleet appeared on their long-range sensors. Hundreds of ships, moving in perfect coordination, their formation shifting like a school of fish. Beautiful and terrifying. They're scanning us, reported the science officer. Taehyun squared his shoulders. Let them look. Everyone, remember your training. No matter what happens, hold formation until the Prometheus gives the signal. The Krathul fleet approached with deliberate slowness, as if savoring their inevitable victory. Their ships were organic in design, with curved hulls that reminded Tachyon of seashells or exoskeletons. The command ship was easy to identify, nearly twice the size of the others, positioned safely in the center of their formation. The first shots came without warning. Beams of energy lanced out from the leading Krethel vessels, striking the outer ships of Earth's formation. Shields flared and held. For now. Return fire, Tachyon ordered. Defensive pattern Alpha. Earth's ships responded, their weapons seeming pitifully inadequate against the alien vessels. But they weren't trying to win this battle. Not yet. They just needed to look convincing. The Prometheus surged forward, drawing the attention of the Krethel fleet. It fired its strange weapons, creating explosions of blue-white energy that tore through the first line of enemy ships. The Krethel responded immediately, dozens of vessels breaking formation to pursue what they perceived as the greater threat. "They're taking the bait," Tachyon murmured. The Prometheus weaved through enemy fire with impossible agility for a ship its size. More Krethel vessels joined the pursuit, leaving gaps in their once perfect formation. Still, their command ship remained well protected. On the Prometheus, Captain Park stood calmly amid the chaos of battle. Her bridge was unlike anything on Earth's vessels. No individual stations, but a circular arrangement where her officers worked in concert, their interfaces connecting seamlessly. "Shields at 72%, reported her defensive officer. "They're focusing their fire." "Good," Park replied. "Keep them interested." Commander Ba, status of the command ship. "Still holding position, but they're starting to respond to our attacks. Their formation is shifting." Captain Park smiled slightly. "They can't help themselves. They see us as the primary threat and want to eliminate us first." She tapped her console, opening a channel to Earth's fleet. "Commander Ryu, execute Phase 2. On the Valiant, Tachyon received the message. All ships, implement attack pattern Omega. Draw their fire but stay clear of the Prometheus's vector." Earth's remaining ships spread out, each targeting different sections of the Krethel fleet. It was like poking a hornet's nest with a dozen sticks. The enemy couldn't ignore any of them without risking a breach in their defenses. The Krethel command ship finally moved, adjusting its position to better coordinate its fleet's response to the multi-directional attack. It was a subtle movement, but exactly what they had been waiting for. "They're in position," Commander Bai announced. "Hold formation," Captain Park ordered, even as enemy fire pounded their shields. "Not until they're in the optimal position." The Prometheus continued its evasive maneuvers, drawing more and more of the Krethel fleet away from their command ship. Park watched intently as the flagship shifted again, trying to maintain its control over the increasingly scattered fleet. "Now," she said, "activate the neural disruptors." Engineer Hiron's fingers flew over her console. "Disruptors active. Broadcasting pattern to Earth's defense grid." Across the solar system, from satellites in Earth orbit to hastily modified communication arrays on the moons of Jupiter, transmitters activated simultaneously. They broadcast a precise frequency that interrupted the Krethel neural network, not enough to disable it completely, but enough to cause confusion. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The perfect coordination of the Krethel fleet faltered. Some ships stopped in place. Others continued firing, but at incorrect targets. Several actually collided, their pilots temporarily unable to sense their fleet mates' positions. "It's working," exclaimed Commander Ba. "Wormhole drive status?" Captain Park asked, her voice still calm. "Ready, Captain." Coordinates locked on the command ship. Park nodded. "Execute jump." Space folded around the Prometheus. For a heartbeat, the ship existed in two places at once, in the midst of battle and directly alongside the Krethel command ship. Then reality reasserted itself, and the Prometheus materialized less than a kilometer from the enemy flagship. At such close range, the neural disruptor's effect was devastating. The command ship's weapons went silent, its defensive systems flickered, and its engines sputtered and died. "Boarding teams, prepare for launch," Park ordered. She rose from her command chair. Commander Bai, you have the bridge. In the Prometheus's launch bay, Captain Park joined the boarding party. Security Chief Gina Song was already there, checking her team's equipment one last time. The combat suits they wore looked like second skins, flexible yet stronger than any armor Earth had developed. Each was equipped with personal shields and weapons integrated directly into the forearms. "Ready, Chief Song?" Park asked. Gina nodded, her expression focused. "Yes, Captain. Team is prepped and the assault pods are loaded. Remember, non-lethal force where possible. We need to capture their neural core intact." The boarding pods launched, crossing the short distance to the command ship in seconds. They attached to the hull, specialized cutting tools creating entrances where none existed. Captain Park led the first team through, into the alien environment of the Krathel ship. The corridors were organic in nature, looking more grown than built, with surfaces that pulsed slightly as if breathing. The air was thick with a sweet, cloying smell. "Movement ahead," warned Gina, her suit's sensors detecting life signs. The first Krathel soldiers appeared around a bend in the corridor. They moved awkwardly, their coordination clearly affected by the neural disruptors. In their natural state, they would act as a perfect unit, each individual an extension of the hive mind. Now they stumbled, their movements uncoordinated. Gina raised her weapon. "Hold position." The Krathel responded with wild, disorganized fire. Energy pulses splashed against the boarding team's shields. "Stun protocols," ordered Captain Park. The team fired in unison, their weapons emitting pulses designed specifically for Krathel physiology. The aliens collapsed, temporarily paralyzed but unharmed. "Central chamber is this way," Park said, consulting the schematic displayed in her helmet. "Move quickly. The disruptors won't keep them confused forever." Gina took point, leading them deeper into the ship. More Krathel appeared, but in their compromised state, they were no match for the well-trained boarding team. They moved through the alien corridors with practiced efficiency, securing their path to the command center. "Almost there," Gina reported as they approached a massive organic door that pulsed with energy. "This has to be it." Captain Park stepped forward. "Prepare the neural inhibitor. Once we're inside, we'll have seconds to deploy it before the core attempts to purge the disruption." The team took formation around the door, weapons ready. Park nodded to Gina. "Breach." The neural inhibitor hummed in Captain Park's hands as the massive organic door peeled open. Inside, the Krathel command center pulsed with bioluminescent light. At its center floated a structure like a giant brain, connected to the ship by thousands of glowing tendrils. "The neural core," Park whispered, just as the Coalition intelligence described. 3 Krathel commanders stood before the core. Unlike the soldiers they had encountered, these beings moved with purpose despite the disruption. They were taller than humans, with elongated skulls and 4 arms ending in delicate many-fingered hands. Their skin shimmered with patterns that shifted and changed, a visual language supplementing their neural communication. "They're adapting," warned Gina. "The disruption is weakening." Captain Park didn't hesitate. She activated the neural inhibitor and threw it toward the core. The device attached itself to the pulsing brain-like structure, immediately spreading a web of glowing filaments across its surface. The effect was instant. The Krathel commanders collapsed, their bodies convulsing as the neural feedback overwhelmed them. Throughout the ship, and indeed throughout the fleet, every Krathel experienced the same. A sudden, shocking disconnection from the hive mind that had been their only reality. "Status?" Park asked, touching her communication link. Commander Ba's voice came through clearly. "It's working, Captain. The Krathel fleet has gone dormant. No signs of resistance or coordination." Park stepped forward, approaching the neural core. Its pulsing had slowed, and the bright colors had faded to a dull blue. "This is Captain Ju Park of Earth," she said, knowing the core could still process communication even if it couldn't control its fleet. "Your forces are neutralized. Your options are surrender or destruction. Choose." The core flashed once, Twice, 3 times, on Park's wrist display, a message appeared in simple text: "Surrender accepted." 2 days later, Fleet Commander Taehyun Ryu stood at the viewport of the Valiant, watching as the last of the Krathul ships were escorted away from Earth by Prometheus fighters. The enemy fleet was being directed to a containment zone near Neptune, where coalition peacekeepers would eventually arrive to oversee their permanent withdrawal. "I still can't believe we won," said his first officer, standing beside him. Taehyun shook his head slightly. "We didn't win. We survived." He turned away from the viewport. "And we had help." On Earth, celebrations erupted across every continent. People filled the streets, embracing strangers, weeping with relief. The nightmare was over. Against impossible odds, humanity had faced extinction and emerged victorious. At the United Earth Council's headquarters in New Geneva, Captain Park and her senior officers were welcomed with a standing ovation. The chamber was packed with world leaders, military officials, and scientific advisors, all eager to hear from the crew who had returned from the dead to save their planet. Admiral Lee introduced Captain Park with simple words that belied their gravity: "The savior of Earth." Park took the podium, her expression serious despite the joyous atmosphere. "We did what any of you would have done," she said. "We came home when our family needed us." She activated a holographic display similar to the one she had shown in the briefing room, but expanded to show the full expanse of known space. "We are not alone in this universe," she said, "and we need not face its dangers alone. The Coalition of Free Species has authorized me to extend an invitation to Earth. They offer alliance, protection, and exchange of knowledge." The council chamber fell silent as the implications sank in. "What would this alliance require of us?" asked the council president, a woman from East Africa with decades of diplomatic experience. "Adherence to the coalition charter," Park replied. "Respect for sentient rights. Contributions to mutual defense. Participation in scientific and cultural exchange." She smiled slightly. "Nothing Earth shouldn't already value." "And if we decline?" someone else asked. "Then we lose nothing. The coalition doesn't force membership. But consider what we gain: access to technology centuries beyond our own, trade with 17 different civilizations, and protection from threats like the Krathul." After hours of questions and discussion, the council voted unanimously to accept the invitation. Captain Park transmitted the decision immediately via the Prometheus's advanced communication array. The reply came within minutes. The coalition welcomed Earth with open arms. Over the following months, Earth began to transform. Under the guidance of engineer Minja Kwan, who had spent 20 years learning coalition technology aboard the Prometheus, humanity's industrial and scientific capabilities leaped forward at an astonishing pace. "This material," Minji explained to a group of wide-eyed engineers, holding up a sample of the same iridescent substance that coated the Prometheus, "is a programmable alloy. It can change its properties based on electrical signals. Harder than diamond one moment, flexible as silk the next." Earth's shipyards, once dedicated to building conventional spacecraft, now constructed vessels incorporating coalition designs. The Prometheus served as both template and teacher, its systems carefully studied and adapted for mass production. Captain Park, offered any position she desired in Earth's new fleet, chose instead to return to space. "My crew and I have been ambassadors for 20 years, she said. "We should continue that role." The Prometheus, refitted and resupplied, prepared for its next journey, to escort Earth's first official representative to the Coalition Council. Ambassador Yumna Shin, formerly a linguistics professor specializing in communication theory, had been selected for her unique ability to understand and adapt to alien thought patterns. "I never imagined I would leave our solar system," Yunha admitted as she boarded the Prometheus, "let alone represent all of humanity to other species." Captain Park smiled. "None of us imagined our paths, Ambassador, but here we are." As the Prometheus activated its wormhole drive, preparing to jump to the Coalition's central world, Captain Park stood on the bridge watching Earth recede on the viewscreen. 50 years ago, she had left on a routine test flight, expecting to return within days. Now she was leaving again, this time as a guide leading humanity to its new place among the stars. Commander Do-Hyun Kim, despite his advanced age, had come aboard to witness the historic moment. He stood beside her, his eyes moist with emotion. When the Prometheus disappeared, he said quietly, "I thought my life's work had ended in tragedy." Park placed a hand on his shoulder. Instead, it was just beginning. The coordinates locked in, the wormhole drive engaged, and the Prometheus, once lost, now the savior of humanity, carried Earth's future into the waiting cosmos. The end